Good morning. My name's Aaron Bedrowski, and I have the wonderful privilege to represent the thousands of men and women that make up the intelligence and homeland security business at GDIT. I want to thank you all for attending today, and especially to our government speakers for taking the time to join us. GDIT's been a mission partner to the Border Patrol for decades, and we're proud to continue to innovate alongside of our customers to protect the homeland. Each of you is a true American patriot, and we thank you for your service to our country. I have the honor to introduce today's fireside chat with State of Border Patrol featuring Deputy Chief Walter Slosar and former Chief David Aguilar. Deputy Chief Slosar has spent a career advancing security of our nation and strengthening the operational capabilities of the U.S. Border Patrol. He served in the U.S. Marine Corps Reserves from 1996 to 2004, bringing his Border Patrol service a foundation of discipline, security expertise, and leadership. Prior to assuming his current role as Deputy Chief, he served as the interim Chief Patrol Agent at El Paso sector, the same sector where he began his Border Patrol career in 1998 at the Santa Teresa Station. Throughout his tenure, Deputy Chief Slosar has occupied a variety of critical positions within the organization, including roles that have ranged from supervisory Border Patrol agent to field operations supervisor and assistant chief at headquarters to patrol agent in charge at various stations. His career includes significant foreign assignments in Central America, and he served as a CBP advisor in Panama and a CBP attaché in Guatemala. Serving as the Chief Patrol Agent for the Miami sector, he oversaw the U.S. Border Patrol operations across Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. Notably, he also served as the Chief of Law Enforcement Operations Director in Washington, D.C., providing direct support to Border Patrol sectors nationwide, including deployment of appropriate resources and oversight of day-to-day law enforcement activities. We're very much looking forward to this fireside chat on the state of the border, changing requirements and emerging threats. So please join me in welcoming Deputy Chief Slosar and Chief David Aguilar.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it. So I want to begin this morning with something that I didn't anticipate doing, but something that I learned. I talked earlier about the family, law enforcement family, the industrial partner family, and especially the CBP family. I just learned that our family is going to expand by one more Slosar. Violet Slosar, his daughter, is entering on duty with the United States Border Patrol.
On the 17th, next week.
Next week,
Yeah.
17th of December. I asked him if it was all right for me to brag on his daughter, and he said, well, I was going to do it. I said, no, let me do it. But again, this speaks to the family that we are. And when I say we, family within the operators, family within the industrial partners, some of you may know I have a couple of my kids, actually all three of them are within the CBP family and love to do it. They grew up in the green uniform and loved what they saw and loved what they continue to do today. So we have the honor of having the Deputy Chief of the United States Border Patrol. This is the individual that makes things happen. This is the individual that drives the strategy, drives the mission, drives the guidance, and is the eyes and ears for the chief and for the organization. You don't get to this position unless you are proven, you are respected, you are a top-level executive, and you are somebody that is looked up to by the rest of the organization. I have ease of saying that because I know what he brings to the fight. Chief, thank you for doing what you're doing. Appreciate everything. And thank you for your continuing service.
Thank you. I do want to remind you, though, sir, many of these folks do know me. So,
yeah, well, for those of you that don't, you heard the reality of the situation there. So I want to begin this morning, Chief, by basically giving industry a state of the U.S. Border Patrol border, the juridical line, both north and south, maritime, what you think is of interest to them that they need to hear in order to continue working to basically not only stay up with the challenges, with the requirements, the needs, but also what to anticipate during this very dynamic time that we are making some tremendous advances that as recently as probably 3-4 years ago, we couldn't have dreamed of.
Yeah, I don't think we can get there without really talking about where we've been and what we've been through and how the adversary likes to manipulate that border, right? I can give you just a snapshot of where we were December 18th, 2023, when we apprehended 10,800 individuals in one day. When I say apprehended, they apprehended us, right? They were chasing Border Patrol agents down. We were definitely in a care and custody situation. Obviously, we want to preserve the life that's within our custody, but it's a very different border environment that we have today. Our lowest day on record of apprehensions was in July. It was 117 apprehensions. We're averaging about 150 at the border, at entry apprehensions every day. We are an all threats agency. And the cartels and the criminal organizations are doing their very best to continue to profit. Just like any other business, they don't like to see their bottom line go down, and they're doing their best to profit off of what they have right now. So we are still seeing attempts, narcotic smuggling, alien smuggling. We continue to see this going on, and as we secure that border more and more with the impedance and denial and the domain awareness that we really need to do our job, it becomes exponentially harder to really seal that down as we attempt to get to, zero gotaways for sure, and influence that flow on the way to zero entries. But we are, in a much better state. These are good problems to have.
Yes.
In our terrain denial mission, impedance and denial is still king. Right, and we can influence that by many, many ways, but policies are definitely the major driver of that flow. We have the policies in place we need to do our job. Now we've got to get the pieces in place, the infrastructure, technology, the people, our intelligence synthesis, and be able to be on point so that we can continue to secure that border. But it is the most secure border on record.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before I left government service, I used to talk about we needed to define the border. Was it governed? Was it managed? Was it controlled? Was it just a matter of keeping oversight? I think we are now at the point of control. Now, to that point, moving forward, right now we speak about AI, we talk about autonomy, we talk about intelligence, of course, we talk about data lakes, we talk about all this other kind of stuff. Where do you see industry focusing their efforts in order to get you from where you are today to where the next level you feel should be? What should be their highest focuses?
Well, we continue to struggle with communications and domain awareness in our most rural areas. We definitely need a whole of industry approach to this. When I came into the Border Patrol chief, and I imagine it was way less change in your pocket, but I had to keep at least 25 cents in my pocket so I could find a payphone, call home, call the office, give a 21, and then make our direction from there. Now each and every Border Patrol agent has a phone with them. Now the connectivity is always a problem on that phone, and the fact that they get so much information onto their phone at one time. We really need to be able to say, you got to go to this area for this piece of information and that area for this piece of information. But if we can give them the data that they need in the different environments they work at, whether that's on the line, whether that's at a checkpoint, whether that's analyzing intelligence, if we can get that to speak to each other, if they can have a one-stop shop, they turn on their phone, they know where their partners are, they know where they need to go, and they know the information they need to act upon to put the right Border Patrol agent on that problem set.
So, of course, we served together, and one of our biggest concerns was communication, being able to talk to each other. That has not changed. Earlier, when the deputy was here, we talked about dead areas, dead spots,
Yep.
Some of them existing since 1924, and we still haven't been able to get that. Talk a little bit about the DDIL environment that speaks to. and the actual requirement that you need to have of up to and including edge computing. Is that an area we need to be looking at now?
I mean, absolutely. We talk about, you know, the edge and the AI and all the other things that can help us do this in the satellite technology and the comms. All these things, they're out there. They exist. There's a way where we can do this. We've just got to get together and be able to figure out exactly how we want to make sure that every Border Patrol agent, whether it's in the boot hell of New Mexico or it's out in the rugged areas of Big Bend, has the ability to let everybody know where he's at, where she's at, what they're doing, how they need help, and how they can get that law enforcement resolution to, you know, those areas where the cartels are going to go to. As we get better and better at sealing this border, we know the cartels are going to go underground. They're already in the air. They have better domain awareness than we do with their drones that we see all the time. Thousands and thousands of drones every day just watching the Border Patrol agents each and every move. And that's not just in our downtown areas in San Diego and in Nogales and in El Paso and McAllen. That is throughout the entire AOR. And that's just the southwest border. I haven't even talked about, you know, our vulnerabilities in the coastal environment and what we're looking at the northern border. So we have a lot of room for investment. I've always said, you know, the U.S. Border Patrol and CBP has always had a DOD-sized problem with no end. We have rarely had the budget to be able to do that, and I would venture to say never, but we're getting really close now with the big, beautiful bill and the amount of money we have for our smart wall technology, for our communications, for our sensor packages, not to mention, you know, the ability, the analytics for our checkpoints of the future, and our ability to track traffic patterns and be able to get that information to a Border Patrol agent to be able to make that arrest and then exploit that and continue the process. And if we're gonna make any edge against the adversary, believe me, it's a business model just like everybody in here. They are going to continue to find a way to make money. We have to fight our enduring mission. It will never end, appropriately with the right amount of money and the right policies in place.
Excellent. So right before we walked in there, one of the challenges you talked about was of course, the overwhelming nature of the threats or risks of vulnerabilities, but also kind of overwhelming is the means of acquisition. We were talking about the CUAS. So would you kind of speak to that a little bit on the challenges associated with, because that's something that industry I really think needs to hear.
Yeah. And just to state, I know I mentioned the problem earlier, but there is not one movement that happens on the border that is not being tracked by the adversary. They have the ability to track everything we do. Now, we have an ability and we have some legal authorities to be able to defeat those apparatus. But you're talking, you know, thousands of drones a day that are staying in Mexico, that are monitoring what we're doing. And it's a huge problem, but it's not just a Border Patrol problem, and this is what I think is key. It is a problem for everything, special events. It's a problem across the country. The bad guys now see better than what we see. And if we don't have an ability to work together, you know, develop our capabilities, there's systems out there in certain places. There's a system in, you know, El Paso with Dr. McGee at UTEP. Many of you are familiar with him. It identifies where people are, where the operators of those drones are. And, you know, we just apprehended one using our partners in Mexico, where the person had over 200 flights at $500 a flight, never crossed the border. We were able to work with our partners in Mexico and attack that, but those are one-offs. This is really a problem where we need to be able to take that one system or that one problem set, share what it's allowed to do, and then develop something as a whole of industry that maps out where those drones are, how they're monitoring us, who is operating those drones, and allow us to continue that law enforcement cycle. But it is a national level problem. It's a Department of War problem. It's a Department of Homeland Security problem. It is a national security risk. And I'm willing to say that it's probably the biggest risk we have in the future, because we're putting in those, you know, those towers we need for domain awareness. We're bringing, $46 billion worth of smart wall technology. All of that is sealing that border, lining it, hard line in the sand. The adversary is not going to stop. They're going to continue in the air. And then not only, are those drones that are in the air, but there's legitimate drones that are out there. We know the things that Amazon wants to do. We know the things that other companies want to do with drone technology, with delivery. CBP as a whole, for legal and for legal trade, we've got to figure that problem set out. Huge problem for us. And in case anybody didn't know in here, like, we don't figure out the problems. You guys do. You bring us solutions. We just tell you what they are, and then we figure out how we're going to keep this country safe. But that is the wave of the future.
Okay. And the future, something that I know you know very well, the maritime environment, the rural and remote areas, and what I mean by that, time in Miami, time in Big Bend, time in El Paso. You talked about the Boot Hill. So within those environments that I just described, what are the gaps that you think maybe industry could help with? And the reason I ask this specific question is because we talk about the coming wave. That's where we're going to be hit next. Because we are, as hard as we are, I believe, and please correct me if you think I'm off on this, but I think we're at a very hardcore position on the juridical line. So the easiest way and the money that they're going to be risking is going to push them out into those rural, remote, and maritime areas. Yeah,
and I'm with you, and I think you're correct. I also think, our subterranean capabilities need to be advanced. And then again, the threat that comes in the sky. And then on the littorals, it's an interesting position for the Border Patrol, especially on the littorals. That's, if you use the football analogy, we're typically the defensive line. When we start working on Florida, Miami, and our littorals, a lot of times the front line is, the U.S. Coast Guard.
Yeah.
Right? And what our brothers in Coast Guard, I love them. They've worked very well with us, but things that we've learned in the Border Patrol and how we communicate and how we attack problems is going to be big when we do it out on the water, and we're going to need the Department of War. We're going to need the Coast Guard. The same TAC capabilities that we have to be seen by them, because we are literally picking up and if you use it as a trail in the sand, but across the water, our brethren at AMO, our Coast Guard folks, as soon as they hit that land, they're ours. And so we've got to be ready to respond to that. Yet, if we have a formidable force, and it comes back to domain awareness, right? And I had a friend in AMO who would always say, Neil, we don't have 100% situational awareness in the Caribbean. And, in case you didn't realize that. And I was like, it's just the water, right? It's not that far. But it presents a whole new challenge. It's not the same. You can't use the same, change detection technology that you could use on the ground. There are no footprints. Mm-hmm. So you have to be able to find those individuals that are continuing to smuggle. I think we've recently, as the U.S. government, come up with some interesting and effective tools to kind of slow some of that narcotics trafficking down. But in the short term, in and around, the RGV area in the Gulf, in and around Florida, from some of those neighboring islands, Cuba, the Bahamas, even as far away as, Haiti and the Dominican Republic, we've got to be able to know what's coming out on the water and be able to react to it and provide that same law enforcement response that's out there. So it's going to be fun, right? But like I said before, we will never be done. Right. It is an enduring mission set. We'll continue to adapt. We have to seal the border first and foremost, because that's the easiest avenue of ingress. And then we've got to come up with legitimate solutions across the whole of government. And that goes back to our data, our intelligence, and everything being shareable. We're looking at the same picture. We're fighting the same war.
Same war. It's funny you say that, because, and we talked about this earlier also, the four pillars: personnel, technology, infrastructure, and intelligence. I had my view of, when I was still in service, of what that meant. How has that changed to what you require now, or has it? because we're continuing to talk about the fence, but I know it's vastly different from what the fence I used to describe.
Yes, absolutely. And I came up under your tutelage, sir, with the three-legged stool, and then we added in the intelligence side of that, and we continue to evolve. And the adversary is constantly evolving. We have to evolve. Personnel, I mean, unless you can develop something that can come in and make an apprehension and use that intuition, we are moving rather quickly. Our interest in becoming a U.S. Border Patrol agent is up from 19,000 applicants last year at this time to over 100,000 applicants.
Wow.
Yeah, the throughput back on our OTD partners is immense, and they're doing a phenomenal job. I think we're set to reach that 22,000 here in the near future, and then on to 25,000 Border Patrol agents, which is what we're authorized at. But the focus is the majority of that focus has been on the southwest border. As we shut that down, we're going to need personnel to be on the northern border more than what we have right now, and in the coastal environment where we don't have enough people to do what we need to do. We continue to rely on that whole of government approach with our federal, state, local, and tribal partners. Being able to share information into those areas is key as well. But I will say personnel, we still need people, and we're always going to need people. Infrastructure, that smart border wall, we're putting that up, but that's still, again, only across the southwest border. And our buoy barrier technology and our smart border wall, we are going to continue to need these things. And I always liken the three-legged, four-legged stool as how we accomplish the tasks we really need to accomplish. And if you look at what we need to secure the border in any environment, we have to have domain awareness first and foremost. And that comes from autonomous towers, that comes from being able to see everything. It also comes from our intelligence piece. It comes from our confidential human source program. It comes from speaking with other governments and having that free flow of information to be able to attack cartels across lines, because we're the only ones that draw lines. We draw them in between stations, we draw them in between sectors, we love to draw lines. The cartel doesn't care about lines, and so having that domain awareness is huge. Impedance and denial, we always are going to need the ability to shape our operational environment. That will never change. We're going to have to be able to move the adversary as best we can into the areas we're best prepared to take care of them. And then we'll never get away from a law enforcement resolution, which goes back to the personnel piece of that, and a consequence delivery. And everybody thinks prosecution's part of it, but if the prosecution and that consequence is 3 weeks, and yet in a time served capacity for someone who affects an illegal entry, 8 U.S.C. 1325 has been a crime since 1929, just in case 5 years after the Border Patrol was born. It's a crime. It's going to be a crime. If America wants to change that, well, that's what Congress's job is. They can work on that. We'll continue to enforce that. But if you're coming from South America or South Africa or anywhere across the world in the Eastern Hemisphere, and you travel all the way here and you get 3 weeks time served, and then eventually you get to stay in this country, we're still going to have a flow. And the two things that will always, always, always be the Achilles heel of the U.S. Border Patrol is flow. That's the number one thing. You can overwhelm our capabilities if you're the adversary. We have to get to a point where we can deny the terrain and not allow them to do that. My goal as the Deputy Chief of the Border Patrol is for Border Patrol agents to never, ever, ever be chased down and turned into. We want to focus on the bad guys that are trying to get away from us. And then, obviously, the fifth thing of that is policy. And you've been with the government for many, many years. I've been in through 6 different administrations. I've never felt more supported than I do right now. I've never felt more pressure to do what I came into the Border Patrol to do, which was secure the U.S. border, than I do right now. So with much things comes great responsibility and great accountability. And I think, those 5 things with the tools of personnel, technology, infrastructure, and intelligence actuation so that we can put steel on target are always going to be the foundation of the U.S. Border Patrol. I don't think that changes, no matter what environment we operate in.
Agree. So 2003, DHS created, CBP became CBP. We had the first unified border agency in the world back then. One of the first things that we started talking about was pushing the borders out. Back then, about the only way we could push the borders out, but physically placing agents, officers in other countries to work that intelligence. From an AI data autonomy perspective and liaison, which is critically important, what do we think that industry could do to enhance that technical push of the border outward away from the juridical line?
Yeah, I mean, the majority of people carry a cell phone with them, and we can kind of, manage. There's ways to identify, in isolated areas, there's ways to identify who's coming into the area, who's staying in the area, who's moving out of that area. And so that's for the majority of the flow. And I think if we can concentrate on giving us a heads up onto what's coming into that area and being able to manage that data and provide it to those field commanders. Next week, we're bringing in all the patrol agents in charge. And I think to have a discussion with them on owning your environment and giving, the handcuffs have been off for about 10 months now, 11 months. Like, we're owning this, and we need to provide those field commanders with the information they need to be able to do that. We can gather that technologically speaking. If you're thinking as the adversary, we're already seeing it. They're limiting those identifiers on their phones. They're limiting those identifiers on their drone activity. They're going dark, right? And so that's going to be the next level. And we haven't even finished, this level, and they're already starting to evolve. They're already starting to not emit an electronic signature and be able to manipulate that signature. So there's kind of two attacks on that we have to deal with. Those that are not emitting a signature and those individuals that are. And we can manipulate the border and have the resources we need, but it's a constant manipulation. And then if you just go into the whole intelligence world, I mean, I'll talk to you about a stash house I saw in El Paso right before I came back up here. So the illegal aliens none of them had phones. They were brought across. They were picked up by an individual who did not know them and did not know why they were picking up that individual. They were taken to a stash house. The stash house was monitored by technology. They were sending Uber Eats to drop off food. Then they were picked up by another individual who received information on Signal, Telegram, WhatsApp, all these other platforms, picked up from there, and we were able to identify them at a checkpoint, but only because of a Border Patrol agent that was paying attention to what was going on in that vehicle. So I say that not because technology is huge and everybody has it, and we can use our resources based off of that information in many, many cases, but we're always going to need some level to evolve to be able to fight those threats. And we get so reliant on that digital signature, and then now when it doesn't exist, it's very hard to make sure that we get ahead of it. And I get this question all the time from many, many people and many leaders, like, hey, you had 18,000 in custody, you were catching 10,000 a day. You guys should be bored, right? Like, we're gonna find other things for you to do. And we have found other things for us to do. But the border doesn't shrink. The geography doesn't shrink. The miles are still the same. And if you want to go to a very basic discussion about where we're going to have activity, it's where we're not going to have a Border Patrol agent. So if a Border Patrol agent isn't on the line, that's where the activity is going to be, because we are being surveilled 24/7, 365.
There you go. So to kind of encapsulate very quickly, a continuation of the foundational pillars: personal technology, infrastructure, and intelligence. Enhancing the scope of what that means.
Yep.
Enhancing the knowledge and the ability to use data to the highest degree possible, because of the amount that they receive, the velocity, the veracity, the value, and the depiction of that to the action agent that is going to act upon that data set.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So We're going to wrap up here in about 2 to 3 minutes, but I want to open it up for if anybody has a question for the deputy here based on what he's talked about or anything, any other interest that you might have. Now's the time to raise your hand and move forward. If not, I've got a couple of other questions. That looks like nothing out there. So let me, oh, here, go.
Hi, David. Angelique Irvin. I make the cameras for RVSS.
Oh, please.
I'm curious on how you are working right now to monitor the false alarm rate in the AI, which is so awesome to have, but we're still challenged by how well it's working yet. I'm curious whether you have a roadmap for that to improve it for the agents on the ground so they're not being sent all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing is more annoying to an agent to be moved from their place where they were observing the border and have to go tell us it was, a rabbit or a cow or anything else that they were, interrupted their key surveillance that they were doing at that point. So, we're gonna have to continue to work, and this is where industry comes in, and we meet with you. But as we state our requirements, we are full and willing partners to be able to do that, right? Because we know that the AI, the machine learning, it's all gonna pay dividends in the end. So if there's a sector out there that isn't willing to go check those false alarms, you let me know, because I will make sure we are checking every false alarm. We're teaching that machine learning, we're developing that AI so that we can get to the point where we have what we're trying to do, compress the border down into the border area, so it is 1954, or I've heard 1989. However long that southwest border is, I keep hearing different numbers from different people. I always use 1954.
It's long.
Yeah, it's long. It's long. We can make sure that we're putting the person in the right place at the right time when we have those immediate activations. But we're full and willing partners to be able to help test this and continue to make everything better for the agent on the ground. But what we can't forget is everybody in this room, all of our professional staff, all of our Border Patrol agents. It's really just to secure the border and make sure that our country is safe. Like Chief said, it was CBP and DHS. We were born out of 9/11, and that is always what keeps us up at night, right? Another one of those instances, and so we got to get ahead of it. I'll run down. Every Border Patrol agent's on duty for 12 hours. We'll run them down all day long until we get it right. Yep.
Chief, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us.